God bless to one and all once again. This is Brother Darren, Hebrews 9 verse 27 and John 3 verse 16. Following up from recent media coverage of the Neuralink, which has been developed by Elon Musk, which is an implantable chip that will go in the head, and also following up from the RFID chip, which has been pioneered and many people have had implanted to go into the hand in Sweden. I think over 4,000 people have taken it. I'm taking a look at a bit of a revelation around the United States of America, the papacy, the year 7076, Rome, and the mark of the beast. In particular, I'm sharing today just off of notes that are jotted down off of a notebook app that I've got on my Hawaii P20. So once this is uploaded to YouTube, you might find that some of the information or the font is a little bit blurry. But everything I've taken down for notes and sort of points and sources is generally off of Wikipedia and other websites that you can find, Christian websites or Protestant based websites, to kind of see all the connections. So I try to read as clearly and concisely as I can, but I'm going to start the sort of talk now. So 1776 AD and its connections to the mark of the beast, 666 and Antichrist. Now, key points, figures or connections are the two beasts from Revelation 13, also Daniel chapter 7, which is the parallel beast, Rome, the papacy and the Jesuits, the United States, as I mentioned before, and the mark of the beast, 666. Now, most of us know 1776 to be significant for the July 4th Declaration of Independence by the United States against Great Britain. But what are its ties prophetically to the mark of the beast? Well, looking at 1776, on February the 17th, Edward Gibbon published the first volume of the history of the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. The history of the decline and the fall of the Roman Empire is a 6-volume work by the English historian Edward Gibbon. It traces Western civilization as well as the Islamic and Mongolian conquests, from the height of the Roman Empire to the fall of Byzantium, which was the fall of Constantinople in 1453. Volume 1 was published in 1776 and went through 6 printings. 1776, March 28. Juan Bautista de Anza finds a site for the Presidio of San Francisco in the Mission District of San Francisco, which was the 6th Catholic mission of a series of missions in colonization, conversion, and genocide against Native Americans. Now, this is the current location, the Mission District, where they're developing Neuralink via billionaire Elon Musk. This is a brain implantable chip considered a prototype, I'd say, at least by ourselves as Christians, and prophetic fulfillment to the mark of the beast, 666, in Revelation chapter 13 and 14. San Francisco is named after Francis Assisi, who the current Pope Francis, the first ever Jesuit Pope in history, takes his name from. A Spanish priest named Father Francisco Paulo founded Mission San Francisco de Asís on June the 29th, 1776. 3 times 6 equals 18. on the 18th. On the 18th of June 1452, Pope Nicholas V issued the Papal Bull Dum Diversis. It authorized Alfonso V of Portugal to reduce any Saracens, Muslims and pagans and any other believers to perpetual slavery. This facilitated the Portuguese slave trade from West Africa, so serving as a major origin point of the transatlantic slave trade. This papal bull, along with the doctrine of discovery and Berlin Scramble for Africa, set off the basis of mass genocide, colonialism, destruction, theft of lands, apartheid, racism, segregation, racial inequality for tens if not hundreds of millions of people and maybe more, with people still stigmatized, racially abused, brutalized by police and mass incarcerated as a result. On August the 18th, 1518, by Charles V, he issued a charter authorizing the international transportation of slaves directly from Africa to the Americas. Saint Junipero Serra, well, he's a saint according to Catholic tradition. Anyway, he was born in the year 1713, died in the year 1784. He was a Roman Catholic Spanish priest and friar of the Franciscan order who founded a mission in Baja, California, and the first 9 of 21 Spanish missions in California. Serra was beatified by Pope John Paul II on September the 25th, 1988, in the Vatican City. Pope Francis canonized him on September the 23rd, 2015, at the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C., during his first visit to the United States. According to historian Alvin Josephi, what happened in California was as close to genocide as any tribal people had faced or would face on the North American continent. Over 150,000 Californian Indians died under this system that Junipero Serra developed and supervised. As just one example among hundreds, at the beginning of the mission period from Monterey to San Francisco, there were 30,000 Ohlone Indians. At the end of the mission period, there were less than 100. On April the 26th, 2017, Pope Francis delivered an 18-minute TED Talk to an audience of 18,000 high-powered attendees gathered in Vancouver, Canada. The Pope also addressed TED's tech-obsessed attendees, including SpaceX founder Elon Musk, and said, "If the growth of scientific and technological innovation would coincide with more equality and social inclusion," the Pope said, "how wonderful would it be if, while we discover faraway planets, we could also rediscover the needs of the brother or the sister orbiting around us." Now I'm going to pause this post here just briefly. So the Pope was giving a talk at TEDx. I think this was the first time he'd ever been invited. And he's completely unaware that Elon Musk is developing the Neuralink, which is the brain implantable chip, which will go in the head, so matching up with the biblical prophecy of Revelation chapter 13. In essence, the Pope is co-signing what is taking place with this chip, or just has no knowledge of what is going on. Now, I shudder to think that someone as powerful in the world as the Pope, with so many people around him who would look after his affairs, could not at all be conscious of Neuralink and how it pertains to the Bible as a portent or an omen for the mark of the beast. Neuralink has been out since 2017, yet the Pope seems to be totally clueless or unaware that this is in essence at least a prototype of the mark of the beast. Now, as mentioned previously, Pope Francis is the first Jesuit pope in history. The Jesuits were launched in counter-reformation to oppose the Reformation and to bring back the Protestant churches. Yet it is out of the reformers, people like John Wycliffe, William Tyndale, William Wilberforce, Thomas Clarkson, Equiano, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth, that they all came out of from the Protestant Church. May the 1st, 1776, Adam Weishaupt founds the Illuminati in Ingolstadt, Bavaria. Adam Weishaupt was a professor of canon law at Ingolstadt and a former Jesuit. May the 4th, 1776, Rhode Island becomes the first American colony to renounce allegiance to King George III of Britain. October the 31st, 1776. In his first speech before British Parliament since the Declaration of Independence that summer, King George III acknowledges that all is not going well for Britain in the war with the United States. Pope Pius VI. Pope Pius VI, born on 25th of December 1717, Christmas Day, died on 29th of August 1799. Pope Pius VI was the ruling pope for the year 1776, the Declaration of Independence. He was born Count Giovanni Angelo Braschi. He was head of the Catholic Church and ruler of the Papal States. After completing his studies in the Jesuit College of Cesena and receiving his doctorate of both canon and civil law in 1734, Braschi continued his studies at the University of Ferrara. Pius VI saw the development of Roman Catholicism in the United States of America. In 1798, upon his refusal to renounce his temporal power, Pius was taken prisoner and transported to France. This was by General Berthier, who was a general of Napoleon. He died 1 year later in Valence. His reign of over 2 decades is the 4th longest in papal history. Now, Christian theology for the mark of the beast in implementation, or the current understanding for it, is that a single future, shadowy, powerful figure, the Antichrist, would sit in a rebuilt temple in Jerusalem and usher this mark in. This thought has been shifted to align with the futurist view, which was actually brought out by, or should I say, is the main view of the Roman Catholic Church. And that ties in with another Francisco Ribera, who lived between 1537 to 1591. He was a Spanish Jesuit theologian. And essentially both him and Bellarmine and a few others, if you look them up, came up with a future view that this Antichrist figure that might bring in the mark of the beast and uttering terrible world devastation would be a future figure. However, Christian Courier, a journal dedicated to the study of religious doctrine and associated with the Churches of Christ, says, "In conclusion, we believe that taking all factors into consideration, there is no entity in history that so fits the description of the little horn of Daniel 7 as that of the papal dynasty of the Roman Catholic Church." Richard Bennett, a former Roman Catholic priest and the president and founder of Berean Beacon Ministries. In Daniel chapter 7, the little horn symbolizing the papacy persecuted the saints and spoke against God the Most High. But this would come to its end at the termination of 1260 years that occurred in 1798 with the arrest of Pope Pius VI in the wounding of its head. 1260 years after Justinian's edict of 538 AD. So just to elaborate a little bit, Justinian's edict in 538 AD gave almost supreme power to the Bishop of Rome. However, this wound, I also believe, could be 476 AD, where Rome fell to the Goths, or the fall of Constantinople in 1453 AD, where the Byzantine Empire fell to the Ottoman Empire. In closing, the Bible is a book of astounding prophecy. It says in Daniel chapter 7 and Revelation chapter 13 that a composite beast of world empires, such as the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, and the Romans, would rule. And from out of the Roman Empire, a little horn would be produced. This little horn would devour 3 horns that went before it. The 3 horns generally are considered to be the Ostrogoths, the Visigoths, and the Heruli, who were part of 10 nations or tribes that formed after the Empire of Rome, and who essentially the papacy or the Byzantine Empire or the Roman Empire came up to dominate. So the Romans would produce a little horn, and this papal seat of power would dominate this first beast. But a second beast would also rise, one of future governments or nations. This would also have 2 horns, so 2 seats of power. And this would usher in the mark to the first beast. And the whole world would wonder after it and say, who is able to make war with it? Now, without the mark in the head or the hand, no one will be able to buy or sell. And those that take it would be damned forever. Now, I don't know precisely who the second beast is. But if we look at the most powerful nations of today, we can possibly take a guess. And if we look at the symbolism in national monuments and other religious iconography throughout these nations, you know, I would definitely say nations like the United States, with its Senate, with its Capitol Hill, which is based after Rome. You've got the apotheosis of George Washington, which is in the Capitol building, where he literally goes up in the heavens and sits with the Roman gods. You've got the Washington monument, which is like a giant obelisk. You know, all of these things must be considered. And the military power of this nation, and maybe even Britain. But I cannot conclusively say. But there is a lot of parallels, there's a lot of tie-ins, a lot of stuff that cannot be ignored. But what we have to understand is it's literally just talking about this second beast. If it's after the fashion of the first beast, is quite simply nations or a nation. I'm not sure that would be dominant, very similar to the composite beast, the first beast of Daniel chapter 7 and Revelation chapter 13, that was composed of the Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, and Romans. Bible prophecy is given to show people that Yahweh is the true God of this world. The Bible basically says that the word of the Lord will not return void. And as I quote consistently and constantly, Isaiah 41 verse 21 to 22 talk of Bible prophecy. So does Isaiah 46 verse 9 to 10. But in particular, there are over 100 prophecies alone from the Old Testament in regards to Jesus Christ, plus other nations from ancient times. Now, the Bible, as I said, is given for people to pay attention to believe on Christ, to be baptized, to be repentant of sins and have fellowship with other believers, to be worthy of escaping hell and a second death. And the mark of the beast, its tie-ins to the Declaration of Independence 1776, the papacy, Neuralink, the RFID chip, dates that this second beast as an empire would have gone throughout the world and subjugated and enslaved. We can see some very, very strong parallels here, some historic parallels, some dates that are tied into the 18th consistently. And proponents of these particular institutions, or the institution of the papacy, and how they've acted murderously and blasphemously in history. Prophecy is given to us once more again for us to rely upon, to believe on, and to adhere to. For those who have not received salvation, I pray that you would seek the Lord before it's too late. Because the Bible says in Hebrews 9 verse 27 and John 3:16, for it's appointed for man to die once, and after that comes the judgment. But in John 3:16 it says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, so that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. God bless. This is Brother Darren, Hebrews 9 verse 27 and John 3 verse 16.